Well, the agenda that Liz Truss has been pushing in her media budget, shrink the size of the state and fund in order to get big tax cuts. That's an agenda that organisations like the Institute for Economic Affairs have been pushing for years, including at Conservative Party conference, where they host a lot of events with ministers and where they boast that Liz Truss has been one of their most regular attendees at. And so I think it does matter who funds these organisations, because often people from these organisations appear, quite rightly on programmes like this, and there isn't the question of who is actually funding the positions, funding the research.
Is your accusation with me sitting on this panel that somehow what I am saying is paid for? Because that is incredible. It's no surprise that someone who believes in free markets in general might wish to work for a think tank that also believes in that. And it's no coincidence that a politician like Liz Truss might be more interested in the Institute of Economic Affairs than she would be with a left-wing think tank. That's how things work. And the reason why we protect the privacy of our donors, because places like the Byline Times would go after them. Right? People are allowed their privacy. It's a right. It's interesting if we look at Byline Times' shareholders. They're not so squeaky clean, are they, either? Max...
We're paid for
Mosley,
by our...
is it?
No. We are paid for by our subscribers. We're entirely funded by our subscribers.
Actual fascist.
We're entirely paid for by our subscribers. And people can look at who our shareholders are, and people can, and we put our subscribers on the front of our newspaper. People can't look at the IEA and see who funds them.
They can see a breakdown. Some of our donors.
There is no real breakdown on the website.
Say where they're from.
Misleading listeners by suggesting there is. Nobody can go on your website and see who funds your organisation.
You can see where proportionately the spending comes from, the donations come from.
What does that mean? Proportionally, what does that mean? Can people go on your website?
Fundamentally, we protect the privacy of our donors.
So they can't?
They can look at the proportion, and also some of our donors do express that openly.
But you have to understand that if you aren't transparent, and what was the saying, transparency is the best form of disinfectant, if you aren't transparent, then of course people are going to think the worst, aren't they? They're going to imagine that a fossil fuel company will have paid you to come out with a report which says something that happens to be quite obliging to them. Now, I've had dealings with think tanks on the left and right for probably 30 years, and I genuinely don't believe that sort of thing goes on. That you have paid.
Well, that's against the law.
You have paid for research.
That's not what happens.
No, but don't you see that you're kind of feeding into this narrative that it does happen, and that's people suspect it does?
I would believe that if it weren't for the fact that the accusations that come our way are by people who fundamentally disagree with the ideology or the policy proposals of our think tank.